Gavin.
Hey, Louie.
How you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing great. You know, today was the first day that the northern winds started, and it wasn't, hot as fuck, basically. To put it poetically, I believe that's a Shakespeare quote.
Is summer over? I don't
want it to be, but I wouldn't mind it if it was like this for the rest of
the world is on fire. How about yours? Don't make me sing this Smash Mouth song. Hi, welcome everyone to the Mixed Reviews.
We are a film podcast where we take a film subject such as an actor, director, or a mini genre, and we take 2 weeks, watch as many movies as we can, do a ton of research, and impart it all back to you, and then tell you what we like and what we don't like.
That's right. We mix up those reviews. And we have some fun, okay? This beat is sick. Why am I feeling so musical today? What's going on?
You really are.
I've always been a musician first at heart. A musician, dancer, actor.
Put that disco stick away. No one needs to see it.
It's last time. Lady Gaga's in town like this week, Kevin, okay?
Is she?
Yeah.
Why am I out of town?
Well, I'm not going to be in town either, so.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter. So
I know.
The two most important people in New York City aren't going to be there. Then why is Lady Gaga even bother showing up?
Right. Cancel. Rebook. Okay, Gavin. I feel very excited, Gavin, because we've had a lot of special guests on. We've had a lot of crazy things going on in our lives that are, I feel, a return to form, a classique episode.
Absolutely.
We did have to pivot for this episode, halfway through watching. We'll get into
a very like I said,
pivot.
Normally we do 2 weeks, and this is a 1 week wonder, folks.
Yeah, it's a 1 week wonder. But I'm so happy we did it. But I'm also very happy for we just put pause on that other episode we were watching for. That episode will come, and I was very, very excited watching for that episode. But before we get into today's episode, we have some old business. Our last episode, we have the lovely, the talented Miss Samantha Stallard on once again.
What a true joy! What a true
joy!
An angelic presence in our lives. Wonderful.
I know it. Having her on made all the audio quality problems worth it.
Oh, absolutely.
But we asked you guys to go online and vote for your favorite Brendan Fraser movie, and here are the results. Blast from the Past, which was Sam's pick, came in at last place with 10%. Encino Man, which was my pick, came in at third place with 14%. Gods and Monsters came in at 18%. And The Mummy, just dominating the game at 58%. That was Gavin's pick. She's the popular choice. She is that girl. She is the moment.
Oh, yeah. I knew going in that, and like, not to be like a bragging McBraggerson, but I was like, the Mummy's gonna win, and that's fine. But I was a little shocked that both of your guys fell behind Gods and Monsters. I did see some people campaigning, and I did see some other responses. There were a couple Bedazzleds out there. There were a couple George of the Jungles.
George of the Jungle. Yep. I mean, Bedazzled is very fun. It's very stupid. And George of the Jungle, also very fun and very stupid.
It's his sweet spot.
Hey, speaking of which, side thing, can we believe this Batgirl nonsense?
Ridiculous. I don't even understand. I mean, I'm not even that much of a capitalist myself, but how can you honestly be like, let's
Don't
just
worry, guys, we're not into capitalism here.
Not capitalism here, commerce, whatever. But how could you honestly be like, let's not even release a movie? Let's not make any profit should be profit, right?
I know. I like how they're like, we're not going to put out a movie we don't believe in. I was like, LOL, girly, have you seen the last 10 movies you've put out?
Yeah, exactly.
Ridiculous.
Aren't you the company behind Suicide Squad?
Hello?
Aren't you the company that got bullied into releasing Zack Snyder's Justice League? Don't come for us.
Hello?
Don't come for us.
I mean, whatever. Like, I'm not scared of nerds. Like, it's
I know you usually put your hand on my head and let me swing away, in those cartoons.
I'm really into bullying lately. It's very silly, and I'm just sad that we're not going to see Brendan as Firefly. That was going to be really cool. Part of his comeback. We still have a couple of things to check out for him coming soon. So. Not all good things, but we'll see who knows what happens.
Speaking of sad, and I don't want to derail this into like a super sad place, but as of this recording yesterday was the passing of Olivia Newton-John. She was the first subject of this year for us.
Yep.
After our 2021 in review episode. And, you know, we had those great guests, Damien and Anne from You Might Know Her From. And yeah, that episode is so much fun and such a blast. And I learned so much about her life and how, like, really got a new appreciation for Olivia Newton-John. And I'm just so sad, you know, fuck cancer. Seriously, just fuck cancer.
Yeah, it was, I mean, Damien and Anne were amazing guests, like truly an honor to have them on. But to be able to watch ONJ's, you know, career and all of her movies beyond Grease. I mean, to find a new appreciation for Grease and how good she is in it. But then to go beyond that and to learn like really what an ally she was. She was our people. She was, you know, like going hard for queer people. That it's just, and we talked a little bit about her personal life and her battle with cancer and, you know, her advocacy work against cancer. And it's, I texted you and I was just like fully shocked. I could not believe.
Yeah. It knocked the air out of me. And that rarely happens, but it's just, and I know it sounds so silly because we truly didn't know her, you know, but we spend really long, intense periods of research doing this podcast that I felt like it was a personal information. I was like, how could that be, you know?
Yeah. So here's to Olivia Newton-John. May she be singing and dancing in Xanadu. And, you know, her legacy lives on for sure.
Absolutely. But pivoting, hard pivot.
Hard pivot.
To some reviews. I have been talking about how I want to get us to 100 reviews by the end of 2021. Apple Podcasts is currently registering us at 81, even though somehow we got 3 more reviews. So Apple Podcasts, check your algorithm because I think that should put us at 82. But thank you so much for everybody who's written in and left us a review. So we're going to read a bunch of them right now. This first one is called Smart. Thanks to Screen Drafts for introducing me to these cool cats. Love this premise, which is both fun and informative. And that's from Wessels1232.
Thanks, Wessels. And thanks for the guys over at Screen Drafts. That was crazy, but fun.
Absolutely.
This is titled Super In-Depth Coverage of Film. Louis and Gavin are well prepared and extremely entertaining. I've only started listening recently, but I love their series on Brendan Fraser. Can't wait to go through the archives and find some new favorites. A must listen. Thank you so much. Who is that from?
That's from Blue
Silo?
Blue Silo.
Blue Silo. Thank you, girly.
And we got another one from Moss138 entitled Hooked from the Start. Everything I've been looking for in a podcast by people I instantly adored.
Oh, the attraction was instantaneous.
Love at first sight. We believe in it. We believe in you, Moss. Thank you so much for writing in.
Yeah, thank you to everyone writing in. We feel your love, and we do this for us, and we do this for each other, and we appreciate you guys coming along for the ride.
Sometimes it's hard to be like, oh yeah, people listen to the show. Sometimes it's like, oh yeah, it's not just Louis and I talking to each other every week. So that's what I really appreciate is I'm like, holy shit, we do have an audience.
Yeah, we're small, but we're mighty. And you know what? We're having fun. And that's all that matters.
Absolutely. End of old business.
End of old business. Okay, Brendan Fraser, thank you so much. We will see you in the movies. If the Warner Brothers lets you.
I was going to say the ones that aren't locked in a vault.
But Gavin, who is our 1 week wonder? Who are we talking about today?
Now, this might sound bonkers because she is a person of a varied, wide career. She is fun. She is dark. She is occasionally sexy. I totally think she pulls off sexy. The kooky, the booky, Miss Joan Cusack.
Yes. Snaps for Joan. I loved doing this so much because, we talked about like, oh, who could we do and who could we turn around? I don't know why Joan came to my brain, but she did. And you said, oh, is it going to be another Tucci episode? And I was like, you know what? Maybe it will be. But I think it'll be worth it still because she is just one of those actresses who is able to take the tiniest little roles and be so interesting, so weird, make all the choices. Like, she is not resting on anything, not waiting for anyone. She is going to grab that screen and just be like, hello, hi, it's me. And it's amazing.
As I've famously said before on the show, I don't truly think the Oscars matter until they do matter, until it's something unprecedented that happens and really breaks a barrier. But I think nothing could be more telling for her that she's been nominated twice for the Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actress, because she is a true supporting actress. She's somebody who can show up in a movie, just as you were saying, for like 10 minutes, and you leave that movie and you're thinking, well, Joan Cusack, what was she doing there? That was great. You know?
It's like, God, Joan, she's so good. And we say this a lot, I guess, but really, I really, really think it applies to her, where it's like everything she's in, I'm just like, oh, yes. You know she's going to deliver something so, so good because, you know, she's known to being kind of kooky and weird, but when she's sad and dramatic or angry, there's so much pathos there behind her. Like, it's great. I had a lot of fun watching. I hadn't seen a lot of the movies that she's in, even in her little bit things. They're so much fun. She brings it to you every ball.
Absolutely.
Do you remember when you first found Joan?
Oh, God. I mean, but, you know, she's somebody that's been littered in movies my entire life. That's the thing is, so I don't know if I could pinpoint one. I mean, you know, and she's been littered throughout this podcast. I mean, literally, she's in a Brendan Fraser movie. She plays his mother in Looney Tunes Back in Action. Yeah. So, like, but maybe 16 Candles in her, like, bit but memorable part as the girl in the back brace.
Yeah, iconic. We'll get to all the good things. Same. A part of me is like, maybe Addams Family, right? Like, that was the first thing where I was like, here she really is. But like, whenever you see her, even if she has one line, two lines, like in 16 Candles, I don't even know if she has lines in 16 Candles. But
but she does try and drink from a fountain, and it's very memorable.
Right. She's just always so memorable. But okay, I'm excited, Gavin. Why don't we get into our rewind? So there's not a lot written about Miss Joan Cusack, but she's given interviews before and she has talked some. But what I learned the most is she is a very shy person. Yeah. And she also just really is kind of uninterested in sacrificing much of anything for Hollywood. She's very content with her bit parts, is totally fine playing the best friend role that she has done over and over again.
And I actually have come to really like the best friend role. At first, I think because I did it in Working Girl too, and I've done it before. And, you know, in general, I've played a lot of character parts. And I found that to be a great kind of wonderful life as an actor because, you know, and I know it especially from John because he's always done kind of leading roles, that there's such a pressure on you, and it's such a demanding schedule, and there's something wonderful about being able to go in and do your part and show up and support the film and be part of the story and not have to carry the whole thing and then go home and, you know, be a leading lady in your real life.
She literally owns a like tchotchke store in Chicago, and she's like just hanging out selling tchotchkes there.
Oh, that's I mean, I was gonna save this for the end, but I think now is the perfect time to bring it up. I think my favorite thing about her, before we even really get into her history, is we put celebrities, actors and actresses up on such a pedestal that when they do normal things, it feels weird. And one of my favorite bits coming across from her, from doing the research on this, was finding this interview she did with a local news station about the movie The End of the Tour. And she was talking about how, you know, she lives in Chicago and they asked her to do this movie and it was in Michigan. So she's like, yeah, I drove from Chicago to Michigan. I stayed for like a week in like a hotel. I got paid. I drove back from Michigan. I stopped at an antique store, bought a chair, and I went back to Chicago. And the interviewer's like, oh, well, how was it? And she's like,
it's awesome. Everyone fights over it. It was $35.
I got at this thrift shop, and it's like everyone fights over it because it rocks and swivels and turns.
And I was like, that's so normal. That's so like, and that makes her seem weird, but that's not weird at all. That's the human experience. You know?
She's given interviews where she was like, Hollywood's weird. People are weird, and we shouldn't be like putting people on pedestals. Like, don't do it, guys. It's funny. I saw 2 interviews of her where her and her brother, Joan Cusack, her younger brother, they go to like Comic Cons or con conventions, you know, at different cities, and they'll do interviews together. Like it'll be like, here's John and Joan on stage answering questions, and they're both just very low key, very kind of like, you know, people adore her for a lot of her iconic roles, which we'll get into, but everything is just so low key about them. You know, she's like, listen, making movies is hard. Okay. Like it's a privilege to do it when we can, you know, but like, it's a lot of work, and John, he keeps trying to make them, you know, and so when it finally happens, we have to have a good time. And I love that about her. She's always just like ready to have a good time. Okay. I digress. Anyway, Joan was born October 11th, 1962. That makes her 59 years old.
It's very young.
Yes. She was born in New York City, but was raised in Evanston, which is a suburb outside of Chicago. Her mom, Ann Paula Cusack, is a math teacher. She was also really into politics and activism. And her father, Dick Cusack, he was an actor and filmmaker. She talks a lot in interviews about how growing up and the influence of her parents really was formative. They were the ones who put her and John in, like, there was like a community theater outside of Chicago run by Jeremy Piven's parents, LOL.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so fun to listen to her talk about it because, you know, she said the first 2 that started to go were her and Anne, her sister. And it was kind of because her parents were like, we have 5 kids, just go do whatever you want.
Right.
And Anne was really outgoing, and I'm sure a lot of people have seen Anne. I think most recently Anne is on Better Call Saul, but you've definitely seen Anne in many things. But she was talking about how Anne was really outgoing, and she was like really introverted and shy, like you were talking about. And the thing about this camp, their specific teaching style, is that there is no self-consciousness.
And I was really shy. So, and my sister was really outgoing, so she wanted to go, and I was like, But then, because you weren't allowed to be self-conscious, I really liked it, because it took that burden away. Isn't that interesting? Because you weren't allowed to be self-conscious. So I was like, wow, I like that, because somehow you couldn't, so that's how we all sort of started doing it. And Jeremy was, you know, a younger kid. He was, you know, did the theater games and...
Like, I think I was 7 and my sister was 8, and John did it when he got to be, I think, you know, 7 or 8 too. And we did Ray Bradbury stories and J.D. Salinger and Chekhov, and it was just sort of this wonderful little jewel. And, you know, it was just kind of a happenstance thing.
Right. She, you know, talks about like the way that they were working was very kind of avant-garde, you know, not really traditional acting classes or school. It was just very, you know, you're reading the stage directions yourself. You're both the audience and the actor. Very kind of cool, kooky stuff. She graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Madison, so she did go to school. She's an educated womana.
Which her parents thought was a really important thing for her to accomplish as well.
Right. But also, you know, she was in high school around the same time where John Hughes is making all his movies in Chicago. And so she's in high school and getting booked in movies. I think before she even graduates, she was in 16 Candles already. And in like other small little things before that.
Her first film, My Bodyguard, in which she doesn't really have, you know, she's like a featured player, right. But she was supposed to just be extra. And they liked her enough that they were like, why don't we, you know, stick you in a bunch of these scenes? And
Right. I think I read, people asking her like, what was it like when you were in high school and you were, in movies? And she was like, oh, I was still the nerd. There were still popular people. Like, I was not cool because I was in these movies. And, she has just this very specific energy. I mean, like, jumping a little bit ahead to 16 Candles, it's just like you see Joan Cusack in this movie. Obviously, the back brace is doing a lot of work, but without telling us anything, she is telling us so much about this character. There is so much visual information from the way she moves her face. The physicality of her is just so good. And I think that's maybe one of her like acting superpowers. She's got that great elastic face and so much emotion in her eyes and her brow. But that's going to just like keep her going throughout her career. So like she does 16 Candles. She's in Grandview USA, another movie that we talked about on this podcast.
Yes, for our Jamie Lee Curtis episode.
Yes.
So Lorne Michaels had left SNL. Dick Ebersol replaced him. Ebersol leaves. Lorne Michaels returns. And this is when he brings with him, the Hollywood cast. This is Robert Downey Jr. I can't think of...
Isn't it John Lovett's in it?
John Lovitz, Anthony Michael Hall, Terry Sweeney. And yeah, you're right. It's funny when you watch clips, I've seen things that are like, oh, these were her famous characters. And I watch the clips and I'm like, this isn't really funny,
Randy Quaid was on, like,
yes.
Damon Wayans.
Famously, she did. Damon Wayans, who was fired. She famously did this sketch where she's hosting like a midday talk show with a bunch of James Bond villains. And I was like watching it. I was like, yeah, this is passable, I guess. But like,
it must be tremendously expensive to set up an underground headquarters / lair.
Oh, forget about it.
Yeah.
Plus, you got to provide everything on site, like, say, a cafeteria. Otherwise, you got your people wandering down to the local village in their orange jumpsuits, having a few drinks and talking about the hollowed-out volcano they live in, working.
Yeah, and she says, she was more used to improv life. She was not a sketch comedy gal. So she says they fired her, but she also says it just wasn't a good fit.
I'm so grateful that I was on that show because, again, it was like, God, to have done that, you just have a little bit more confidence to do things, even if it didn't go well. And I felt so badly about it that I didn't make it on that show, and it wasn't right for me. That how could it? I loved Gilda Radner, and how could it have not worked out? And then I realized it wasn't the right environment for me. That I was better doing theater stuff or just straight acting stuff.
Around this time, also though, John, her younger brother, 4 years her junior, his career is really taking off. And their careers will be intertwined forever. I think they've made 10 movies together where they play... Sometimes they do play brother and sister. Sometimes they play, assistant to boss and all sorts of interpolations.
Maybe this is not the right time to bring it up because we're in like a random flux part of her career. How do you feel about it when they're together in a movie and they're not related? Because I am always like, but they're clearly related.
It's funny. I think physically they have, they resemble each other. There is clear, but she has that like shocking hair, red hair. He's got like jet black. They're like the two sides of the same coin. She has like high frequency, like buzzing energy going on, and he has just the most low key intensity going on. And so I am going to attribute it to their time together at that theater school because she is such a good foil to him.
Yeah.
When she is kind of being manic and crazy, he's able to just like kind of look at her and be like, what? Like just deadpan. And so I love the energy between them. I mean, it's clear it's awkward because it's like, yeah, that they're brother and sister when like the title cards are like John and Joan Cusack. I just think it's really fun more than anything. I'm like, oh, this is like so fun. They're like playing. You can feel how like good it is, I guess. I don't know. You don't like it.
I don't dislike it. I just always think it's funny because it's like you can sense that energy, and it's, I don't know, like I liked the fact that a good example is, Cradle Will Rock, which has a billion people in it anyways.
Right.
But they don't have any scenes together, and I was like, perfect.
Yes. Yes. Because unlike, let's say, like in Grosse Point Blank,
Right.
where they have lots of scenes together, and it's just kind of like, I'm just looking at it like, you guys are fun.
Yeah.
What is this, silly Billy?
Exactly.
Like, oh, you work for him? Me? Oh, you don't have the same mom? Okay.
Yeah, and so it's like, it's not something I dislike because I do think you're right. I do think they play off each other really well. I love, in addition to what you were saying about, when she's manic, he's able to like chill it out. I love when she's disappointed in him in a movie, and I can't think of a better example than that than like High Fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
When she brings she actually does bring the superior air to it, and it's like, why don't you just stop being a fuck up for a moment?
Yeah.
So like I like when that polarity is slightly reversed, and it's not necessarily that he's being manic, but she's the more put together person.
Look, I can either stick up for myself or I can believe everything you say about me and end up hating myself, but that's not much of a life, is it? Huh? I mean, I think
This is really the time to be talking
just because
about...
it's never the time, Liz, I can't go on apologizing my whole life.
I think just the once would do.
Right. I mean, but that's like that's also the power of how good she is, because she can go from like kooky manic girl to like authoritative, get shit done. I will fuck you up if you don't listen right now.
Absolutely.
So yeah, she does her one season of SNL, is fired, but you know what? She's thriving. Okay. That's in 86. In 87, she gets cast in Broadcast News. And Broadcast News, baby, which is just like a huge, huge hit.
Yeah.
Written, produced, directed by James Brooks. Like,
yeah. And it like fully changes the course of her career. And even though she is, still spends the next decade playing Friends and these supporting roles, Hollywood sees her finally for the comedic genius she sort of is, and are like, okay, well, we have these roles for you. We have these positions you can be in. But it is very funny that her very next film that she does, which is not to get us off of Broadcast News, but she's the romantic lead in that, which is Stars and Bars. And then suddenly for the next like 4 or 5 movies, it's back to best friend.
Right. Right. And Broadcast News is great. She has an iconic scene where she's, again, using that physicality where she grabs the tape and is running through the newsroom to get it. I'm a sucker for these movies. I'm a sucker for these journalism movies. Gavin, I imagine you have a special connection to Broadcast News because you've literally worked in newsrooms like this.
I was going to say, it's very funny that, this movie is the perfect intersection of both, different points of our careers. Yeah. I used to edit in the news. In fact, I am so old that I did, in fact, much like the editor in this film, edit deck to deck. So I have experienced that with the time code and everything, and watching a poor PA run from the edit room to a playback room. Never quite as dramatic or harrowing as it is in this film, because in this film it literally becomes an obstacle course. But I've seen it with my own eyes, and yeah, it's really brilliant. I will say though, this is maybe higher than Joan Cusack or broader picture, but this is the first time I rewatched Broadcast News, and I was kind of like, oh, I wish some of these characters stuck to their guns a little more. But I guess it's realistic,
I had never seen it before, and so I'm glad I got to watch for Joan. But also, I had heard obviously people talk about it forever and how good it was. I love Holly Hunter.
Oh my God, Holly Hunter!
Desperately. Yeah. Put a pin in her. We got to do an episode on her soon.
With that voice.
So yeah, broadcast news is great.
We have a minute and a half. It's my responsibility to tell the control room and New York that we won't be ready. We'll be ready. In 84 seconds. 15 seconds. Oh, God. You're saying, oh, God. Lay it in, Bobby. Back up. They're going to go up and the screen will be black, and they're going to go to black because we're not there. What about careers, huh? We're not going to make it.
Whoops.
I didn't get to Stars and Bars. Do you have anything to say about her?
Stars and Bars is unfortunately the last thing I watched, and it's not very good. So
there you go.
But Joan Cusack's good in it, and also it's cool to see her as the love interest to Daniel Day-Lewis.
Wow. Okay.
And not only just the love interest to Daniel Day-Lewis, but the competing love interest, very briefly at least, for Daniel Day-Lewis and Laurie Metcalf is the woman that he's with. So yeah.
I also love doing this episode because it's such a specific time period where and it's like we see a lot of the same faces coming in throughout, especially because she's mostly a smaller role. I'm like, oh, she's playing like Lily Taylor is in a lot of these movies. Yeah. But I guess also Lily Taylor is in a lot of Joan Cusack movies. I was like, okay, there's a lot going on here.
I
it's
love
good.
Lily Taylor. That's another put a pin in her.
Absolutely. Briefly, she's in Married to the Mob, which we talked about for our Michelle Pfeiffer episode.
She's so funny, but like not a big role by any means, right. but just that opening scene, hilarious.
Yeah, it's an audition for Working Girl, really, because absolutely. In 88, she's got Stars and Bars, Married to the Mob, and Working Girl. Working Girl probably is the cherry on top of all that, because here's where she gets nominated for an Oscar. And truly just like a tiny little supporting role, but she is so funny and so good.
She's described the makeup and the hair in that movie as doing kabuki theater. That's how
it's enormous. It's enormous. But it's just like the specificity of a time and a place. I also had never seen Working Girl. And
oh my God. What a pure delight. If I could go back in time and be like, this is your first time seeing Working Girl.
I know.
So good.
Sigourney Weaver is so good.
I also think, and this is a complete sidebar, I also think Working Girl is maybe the only time in Harrison Ford's career where he plays a character.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's not Harrison Ford.
It's not Harrison Ford. Like that first time that he shows up in the movie and he's like kind of befuddled for Melanie Griffith's Working Girl, which is not her name in the movie, but I like that. She plays the titular role, Working Girl.
The titular girl who's working.
But yeah, I love every inch of that movie, and it's so funny because there's news that just came out this past week that Selena Gomez is going to star in the remake. And honestly, like, I'm not mad because I'm not one of those people that's like a remake ruins a movie, because a remake doesn't. It's not like everybody's going to burn every copy of Working Girl. But I think the important thing that she does need to know going in it is that movie is made on the character actors she surrounds herself with. Yeah. And one of them being Joan Cusack. But that movie is full of them.
Sometimes I see him dance around the house in my underwear. Doesn't make me Madonna. Never will.
What's funny is that Derek watched it because he was really going through all of Mike Nichols' movies.
Okay.
And he was telling me all this hot goss and tea about Working Girl and how Melanie Griffiths apparently was just like really struggling with a coke addiction and drug usage, and like he had to like shut down production. It was an unwell, not good experience, but he is such a genius and everyone is so good that like in the end the movie really turned out, which I am very thankful for, because first time watching I was like, okay, this is incredible. I think 89 is the first time she works with John, right?
Yes.
And that's in Say Anything. Again, another movie I had heard about a lot but never seen, and she is the rom-com blueprint. Like, I don't like the teen rom-com.
I famously don't like this movie, but that's
she plays his older sister. Not a stretch, but I think John Cusack's really good in this movie. And like the moment where they have a couple scenes together. She's not in a lot of it, but she's basically raising him and her own child, And he's like, you used to be really funny. And she was like, I was funny, huh? Like, there's just like, you can sense the tenderness between them. Like, it feels very real. And I why don't you like it, Kevin?
I just think it's too long and too cluttered. And I think, like, much like most of the films of Cameron Crowe, it's like desperately in need of somebody to cut it down. But that's my biggest complaint about it. I also haven't seen it in years. I did not rewatch it for this, I will say.
I enjoyed it. I was like, it took me back to a time when people respected teenagers. I'll just say that. Like, you know, it's like, these are human beings with thoughts that aren't just like, I'm a dumb teenager, which was nice to see.
It does help that you wake up every morning, look in the mirror and go, I'm the teenage dream.
Yeah, I do that. Next up, I saw Men Don't Leave, which is the craziest fucking name of a movie I've ever heard in my life, because let me tell you something. Men do be leaving, okay? Complicated thoughts of this movie is what I'll say, especially surrounding Joan's character. Joan essentially is like this older woman who, I don't know why, has an romantic interest in Jessica Lange's young son, played by Chris O'Donnell, the tiniest Chris O'Donnell I've ever seen. And essentially, Jessica Lange's husband dies. She has a hard time raising her kids and has no money, moves to the city. In the same building, Joan Cusack lives there. Jessica continues to have issues, falls into a depression, but don't worry, because Joan Cusack is maybe having sex with her son, who is a teenager. Maybe, I don't know. They don't confirm that, but he does spend the night a lot over at her place. And also, she's like a caregiver, so she goes down and is like, you're depressed, I'll save you. And that's the movie.
This was another one I unfortunately didn't have the time to get to. It was also could have been mentioned in our Kathy Bates episode.
Yes, Kathy's in here.
And I didn't see it for that either. So someday I'll see Men Don't Leave.
Gavin, don't leave. I know you saw The Cabinet of Dr. Ramirez.
I did. Cabinet of Dr. Ramirez is this experimental silent film that she did with Peter Sellers as director, not comedian Peter Sellers, but opera director Peter Sellers. And it's her and Peter Gallagher and famous ballet dancer Mikhail Baryshnikov. And yeah, it's arty.
But is it art? Art. But
is it art? And yeah, I think there's some good stuff in it, and everywhere's listed as being almost 2 hours. It's not. It's an hour and a half. And so, like, if you want to watch it, it's on YouTube. It's not a really shitty VHS rip because it never got a theatrical release. It was played once on PBS. But yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But speaking to that quality they're talking about her face and about her movement, there's this really beautiful looking scene where she's standing outside a coffee shop and Baryshnikov is like playing an unhoused person who is possibly also a serial killer sleepwalker, and he's like reaching for her and she's carrying all this coffee and she's like trying to move away and it almost looks like a dance, and then he like grabs her and she drops all the coffee and screams, and all you can see is like this giant close-up of her face. And I think there's some beautiful stuff in there, but it's not a successful experiment as a whole.
What's wild is that she does so many tip spots that, like, just looking at her filmography, I'm like, we watched a lot of these movies for other episodes. I don't remember her from Hero.
Yeah, I don't remember her from Hero either. And it's funny, she plays Dustin Hoffman's wife. So I went back and like looked at some clips and stuff and was like, oh yeah, his estranged wife. She's not in a ton of it. But we watched that for Gina Davis, who actually won the Oscar for Accidental Tourist the same year that she was up for Working Girl. So
there you go.
She got her
Full
Oscar,
circle.
which is not to say, I don't mean to say she got her Oscar. It's just she won the Oscar and Joan didn't. I'm not causing drama between the two of them.
Joan, or if you're listening, you need to call Gina. She has your Oscar.
I do want to say, I noticed that you carefully skipped it. Have you seen My Blue Heaven?
No.
That's okay. That's okay. But I love My Blue Heaven.
You love it? Okay.
I love My Blue Heaven. So much so that the first time I visited Austin, Texas, which I always think it's a little crazy to go see a movie on a vacation, but we were in Austin, Texas, and their matinee that Sunday at the original Alamo Drafthouse, the Ritz, which is now closed, was My Blue Heaven. So I drugged Dan to it. It's so good. It is a very odd movie about a con man. It's directed by Herbert Ross, written by Nora Ephron, starring Steve Martin and Rick Moranis and Joan Cusack. I'm not going to talk too much about this movie, but needless to say, you should watch it at some point. It's very funny. It's maybe one of my favorite Steve Martin roles. He's really going for it throughout the entire movie.
Call me Vinny.
It says here your name is Todd.
Barney Coopersmith, FBI.
Hannah Stubbs of the District Attorney's Office.
What's going on here, Vinny?
Barney, you gotta ring a phony minister stealing liquor. Make me a minister, I'll go undercover, infiltrate them, we'll nail all these...
All right, knock it off. What do you got?
Grand Theft Auto. Felony theft.
We gave you a car. What happened to it?
If I could remember that, I wouldn't have borrowed the other one.
We're arraigning him in the morning.
No, you're not.
We most certainly are.
This man is in the federal witness program. He's under the protection of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I'm the agent in charge of his
What are you
case.
doing in my purse?
Just looking. Cute kids.
Thank you.
Baseball fans, I see.
Yes.
That's your husband?
Not anymore.
Carol Kane's in it for literally just a tip spot. He delivers the best line in the movie to her, which he meets her at a grocery store, and he's like, you know, it's dangerous for you to be in the frozen food section. Why is that? Because you could melt all this stuff.
Carol Kane, who we'll see again later also.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, My Blue Heaven, that's what Democrats call Austin in Texas.
I like that you added the in Texas.
Yeah,
we do
I
have
was
an
like, well,
international audience, so
right, we do. Okay, but you know, the I would say the meteorite hitting Earth and blasting off for Joan has to be 1993's Addams Family Values.
absolutely.
This is her kind of moving front and center in a movie that really just hits with a lot of people. She plays Debbie Jelinski, who is the homicidal murderess, man-eater.
Black Widow.
Yes, she is just everything. Somehow she is everything the Addams Family is, and yet the complete opposite. This movie's a barrel of laughs. She's incredible. I'm sure we'll be talking about it later.
I can show you all my references so you know I'm not a homicidal maniac. Of course you're not.
You're too young.
Just great. Just a true star-turning performance. I will say, in a non-star-turning performance, though it should have been, I will always have a soft spot for the movie Toys, which came out the year prior. She plays Robin Williams' sister. Toys is a really fucked up movie. I'm sure it does not hold up, but I saw it at such a young, inappropriate age that I will always hold a soft spot for it. And I truly think her performance is amazing. And since you clearly have not seen it, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but there is a big, like, third act reveal with her character.
I'm scared now.
But she's great in it. She's the most, like, literally the most heightened Joan Cusack performance. Like, there's a scene where she's eating a sandwich and she opens it up to reveal that the only thing that's on the sandwich is, like, butter and pills. Like, she's bonkers in it. It's so good. Such a crazy out there performance.
Is that all you're having? White bread's the worst thing you can eat.
No, Jason, it's very soft and pliable. It slides down the system without disturbing anything.
There's no nutrition in that sandwich.
Yes, there is. Vitamin pills.
Well, something's working because you always look the same age to me.
Well, that's where she shines, when she's able to be crazy and out there, you know, because she always can rise to the level. I don't think there's anything that's out of her wheelhouse. But she's also able to like inject so much like humanity. I think I listened to an interview with her for Addams Family, and she was like, I just didn't want to have any shame. I wasn't going to like judge, you know, Debbie and have a lot of fun. And I was like, that's like, you know, it's a really cool way to like approach it.
I did kind of think, is this misogynistic and, you know, she's capable, confident, sexually sophisticated woman. why is she a killer? And then I thought, no, it's just funny, and it's just a movie.
Other tip spots coming up that I did not realize she was in. Corinna, which I have definitely seen. Don't remember her.
We watched it for our Whoopi Goldberg episode.
Correct. 9 Months, which we watched for Julianne Moore. I think we can stop at, I don't know, maybe 96's Mr. Wrong.
Yes, that's a good place to stop.
Ellen DeGeneres' flopperson movie that ever flopped.
Dark romantic comedy. It's so hard to watch Ellen DeGeneres falling in love with Bill Pullman, knowing what we know now about Ellen DeGeneres, and that's that she's mean.
That she's not a good person.
Yeah, that she's not a good person.
It's bizarre because Ellen has zero sexual chemistry with.
Yeah, and this was prior to her coming out. So like I do want to say that like America didn't know, but like
right. But everyone did know that she ends up with like the young hot guy, and I'm like,
yeah.
Not that, I mean, Ellen is a fine looking woman. I'm sure she's happy in her marriage, all those good things, but she is a funny gal. She is not the sexy, and I mean, not even like sexy, but like romantic gal. There's no romance to
And what's
Ellen.
weird is the tone of the movie is very off because Ellen's doing her like sarcastic shtick thing, and everybody else is a fucking cartoon character. Like Joan Cusack and Bill Pullman are like playing to the rafters, and she's like, crazy, this stuff is happening, right?
She's kind of like looking directly into the camera and being like, the world's weird, right? Like, what's going on with you guys? Like, it's like, do you not know the bit we're doing, babe?
Yeah.
So Mr. Wrong, very wrong. The year after, 97, Gross Point Blank, another movie with her brother. He is an assassin. She is his assistant. I think she's great in Gross Point Blank.
Absolutely. And it's not a huge role, but her presence is felt in a ton of the film.
Yeah, no, where the fuck is it? I ordered 3 days ago. No, that doesn't work. That's not right. Let me go over it again, all right? Let's see, 3,000 rounds of 9mm subsonic. You had that. I gave that to you on the fucking list. Well, I don't give a goddamn where it is. You get it here now.
Right, because the movie has a really kind of slick, cool style and vibe to it. It's like, he's a killer. We're not going to talk about it. It's fine. It's weird. And she is just like, imagine the secretary who has to take care of these hired killers, and, you know, all the stereotypical things that a secretary would do and be helpful with. And she is just like killing it, pun intended. I think they've said at an interview together that this was the movie that they had the most fun making together. And you can tell it's just a lot of fun.
And it's funny because I've listened to her in interviews. I've heard people ask, like, like when Joan Cusack gets a script, do you just hope that there's like a role for you in it? And she's like, it's not about that. It's about the fact that we like working together, that it's like a fun thing for us to do is to appear on screen together. But I will say this, it's rare that it's a Joan Cusack movie with John playing, you know, second, and I just think that's the nature of their different Star Treks.
Right. I think, you know, John obviously has had way more leading man roles than and Joan has ever had. But I think Joan's priorities are very different. Joan has said, she's like, I wanted to get married. I wanted to start a family. I wanted to live in Chicago. That's where I'm from. That's where the people I know. And she just isn't really interested in kind of sacrificing her personal life for movies. I think it's kind of cool. She understands what this industry is about and what this business is, and that a lot of it is a business decision. And so when she is making movies, it is with her friends, it is with her brother, and she's totally fine being, you know, that best friend character. You know, even today, was she not attached to the Julia docuseries on HBO? And she was like, I'm not shooting that anywhere else than Chicago. Like, yeah. So she passed on it, like, and she's like, I don't care that much, which I love. It's great. In 97, same year as Grosse Pointe Blank, she's in and Out, which is another high point of her career. She gets nominated for another Academy Award. In and Out was, or is, maybe one of like the early like 90s gay movies where it's like, ooh, mainstream homosexuality, how crazy. Kevin Kline plays this teacher who is outed because one of his former students wins an Academy Award and says, this one's for you, my gay teacher, or something to that effect.
And it's all based on, you know, essentially the Tom Hanks Academy Award speech for Philadelphia when he, you know, said this teacher I had was gay, and it was like, well, what would happen if you outed a teacher? Yeah, I mean, In and Out is very much of its time, but I don't know. I hate saying this. I love In and Out. I think it's so much fun.
You're right.
And
right.
like,
I was like, where's Gavin going with this? Where?
Well, I think if you look at it analytically and you really like, it's very easy to find the flaws. I think that the biggest flaw in it is that it is very much of its time, 1997. It's so binary. The decision is that like he is gay or he is not, and it's very weird because you don't really see any of his internal life outside of that he loves Barbara Streisand. It's like, has he ever been attracted to men? Has, you know, like, does this man secretly have affairs with men? Does he jerk off to pictures of it? But the movie's not interested in that because it's a heightened, almost parody. You know, it's a farce.
Yes. The levels of farce are so good.
Yeah.
I mean, when they show us clips of the movie that the guy made, where like he's a soldier who's gay,
they show the whole movie at the Academy Awards, as his movie clip,
and I was like, oh, some girlies in the studio were like, we're gonna fuck with Hollywood a little bit, and to get to Joan, she is just. So she's engaged to Kevin Kline's character, and they've been dating for 3 years, and they have not consummated the relationship. And finally, you know, he's outed. There's this scene where he's like is trying to not be gay, but like the music is playing.
Yeah, it's I Will Survive.
Yeah, and he realizes he is.
Gloria Gaynor, responsible for outing many gay men.
Correct. And I mean, the scene of this movie with Joan is when she has, you know, the wedding has been called off because Kevin Kline has officially come out. She is furious. She used to be a fat person and she lost all this weight and she's so proud of herself and she's going to get married and her life's turning around. And then now her fiance is gay. So she runs to the bar and is desperate to hook up with anybody. And she's like, 3 years of holding hands and dates. Will you sleep with me? And it's Tom Selleck, who is a gay reporter. And he's like, I can't sleep with you. Why? Well, I'm gay. And it just like cuts to the exterior. It's dead silent. And she kicks the door open and she says,
Is everybody gay? Is this the Twilight Zone?
It's so funny and so good.
Can I say that my only other problem with the movie, and they're lucky that they have Joan Cusack, and she does get nominated for an Academy Award for this as well, for supporting, but they're so mean to her character.
Yes.
And so I'm glad she has one of the few non-farcical dramatic scenes in the movie when he calls off the wedding and she yells at him. Mm-hmm. And I like, they put so much emphasis on the fact that she used to be fat. Yep. And like, as an overweight person myself, I'm like, oh, come on guys. And I'm glad there's that scene, and I'm glad that Tom Selleck in the bar tells her like, it's nothing you did. He should have told you sooner. Yes. Like, this is on him. And those moments, I think, really sell me on that the movie itself isn't being mean-spirited and is trying to avoid being mean-spirited, because she, funny enough, for a movie that could easily slip into like really terrible homophobia,
Yep.
Like the person they're meanest to is poor virginal Joan Cusack, who has, used to be a fat person and like can't find a man to love her.
Right.
And then of course she does end up with, the movie stars as a reward.
Right. I think, it's that commentary of like, there are these sad straight women who are so naive that are being tricked by gay men. And that was, that's cliche at this point, but was a thing that was talked about a lot in the late 90s and the early aughts, these gay men who are hiding, right, amongst us. But whatever. That's in and out. She's great in it. Today I had the choice to either watch Addams Family again or Arlington Road. I chose Addams Family, but I wanted to watch Arlington Road because isn't she like kind of a bad girl?
She's a terrorist. Her and Tim Robbins are terrorists. I had seen Arlington Road before. I did rewatch it for this. I still think it's not a great movie. It's like a very preposterous movie. It's one that if you think about for too hard, your brain just melts. But I think she's really good at it. I think she outshines, it's Jeff Bridges in the lead and Tim Robbins, and they're the foils for each other. Jeff Bridges is the widower of an FBI agent who was killed in what the FBI thought was they were taking down like homegrown terrorists. And he also happens to be a professor who teaches a course on terrorism. And his new neighbors in town are these like seemingly perfect couple, Tim Robbins and Joan Cusack. And spoiler alert, gasp, they're terrorists. And she is so good and so creepy because she literally off screen, but she kills his girlfriend. Like his girlfriend tries to warn him and she like sees her in the parking lot and is like, what are you doing here?
What are you doing here? Just shopping. What are you doing here?
Shopping.
And it's just this very awkward, and then it cuts to black, and the next thing you find out that she died in a car crash. And so it's just like,
I saw the trailer and I was like, Joan is giving her best Stepford situation. Yeah. Okay. 99 is also a big year for her because she's in Cradle Will Rock, written and directed by
Tim Robbins.
Hello. Like it's all in the family. I saw Cradle Will Rock today. I liked it a lot.
It's good. It's a little, my problem with it is it gets very muddled. Tim Robbins is telling a story. It's a story about the first production of Cradle Will Rock, which I actually got to see a production of Cradle Will Rock a couple of years ago. And it's still great, but about the first production of Cradle Will Rock, but he's also intertwining it with the end of the Public Theater, the beginning of HUAC, and the destruction of this Diego Rivera mural at Rockefeller Center. And, those things all happened, but, like the destruction of the mural happens in like 32, I want to say 32 or 34. The Public Theater ends in 38. Like the Cradle Will Rock was like 36. He's like really compressing the timeline in order to make a point. And like, honestly, I love the point. Like the point is about like, don't fear socialism. And there's like a public need for a lot of stuff and public arts are not the enemy. And I think that's all really fascinating, but I think the way the movie is chopped up and like as an editor, like really bothered me. I think a lot of those things like interrupt the flow, and I would have taken some of it out or placed it in different places. And also, like, once again, not to shit on our brother, but I think John Cusack is actually pretty bad as John D. Rockefeller. He only has a couple scenes, but I was just like, ugh.
Yeah. I think for me, the gag of that movie is the last scene where it's like, we got rid of Public Theater and now look at this. We're all whores to fucking...
Yeah, the signs of Times Square.
Yeah, like the beating heart of theater in America is riddled with McDonald's and Coke and the Virgin Megastore and all that mess. I was like, okay,
well, they got the Virgin Megastore, so they...
and replaced it with a Forever 21, so
yeah, exactly.
How about that? And her final for the hat trick of 99... Not even. There's 4.99. Final acting performance or live action performance is in Runaway Bride.
Yeah.
I had gotten away with not watching this movie forever and finally watched it. And I was like, well, I was right.
I had seen it before as a kid. And it was funny because shout out to Zeta Short of the 300 Passions podcast. I was recently on the 300 Passions podcast talking about my best friend's wedding. And this movie got referenced a lot. And I kind of bluffed my way through it because I was like, I haven't seen it in years. I just remember being really bad. And then rewatching for this, I was like, I hate this movie. I hate it so much. But
this is one of those movies where it's like, journalism is whatever.
Yeah.
Being a writer is whatever you want it to be.
Also, you can kind of be a not fully formed and bratty, selfish adult, and everybody will still love you in the end. I mean, the scene, like, there's so many things, and I don't want to bring up any of them because none of them have to do with Joan Cusack, who is playing just Julia Roberts' best friend in butterfly clips as a hairdresser. But the scene where Julia Roberts confronts her dad about his alcoholism because he says something nasty about the fact that she's left 3 men at the aisle, and she's like, well, I don't want a dad who's an alcoholic or whatever. And then, like, everything's fine. I was like, no, what the fuck is this stupid dramatic shit? Like,
yeah, not for me.
No, it's not for me either. Seriously, if somebody goes to do your hair, if you go into a salon and they're like, oh, I'm going to wash your hair, and it takes fucking 2 hours because they're dyeing it,
right?
You're a bad journalist.
Yeah. I can't even go through all the like nonsense of him being like, guys, shh, I'm writing my column in the middle of a bar. Or the whole idea that like a columnist could be walking down like New York streets and people being like, hey, what's going on? Write me in the column. Like, that's not how that works.
Yeah, just random people pitching you with stories at bars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't go down that rabbit hole. I can't go. She is in Toy Story 2. She's the voice of Jessie, who, you know what? I'm sure Jessie is paying for all the bills.
I know. I was just going to say, Jessie is paid for both of her sons' college and, any dental work that she's had over the last, 20 years. I think this is maybe her most famous mainstream role, which sounds insane because it's a cartoon. But Toy Story has been with us all of our lives.
Yes.
And so for kids that are just experiencing now, like, it's a whole new, like, being introduced to Joan Cusack. Also, like, once again, she didn't do anything but the When She Loved Me scene, which is just all set to the Sarah McLachlan. Like, oh boy.
I know. And Jessie is a delight. She is a delight. As Jessie, brings so much heart.
Yeah, no notes.
No notes at all. And for this going and all Toy Story going is out after it is so good.
Look, Jessie, I know you hate me for leaving, but I have to go back. I'm still Andy's toy. Well, if you knew him, you'd understand. You see, Andy's
Let me guess. Andy's a real special kid. And to him, you're his buddy, his best friend. And when Andy plays with you, it's like, even though you're not moving, you feel like you're alive. Because that's how he sees you.
How did you know that?
Because Emily was just the same. She was my whole world.
In 2000, she's in High Fidelity, another movie with John as the lead. I had never watched this, and I put it on, and me and Derek were watching it, and Derek was like, this is the straightest movie I've ever seen.
I love High Fidelity, though, I will say. I love it.
Both of us were only upset because we loved the show starring Zoe Kravitz so much, and so we wanted a little bit more of that flavor.
No, they did a good job translating. I've not seen the show, but I've the stuff that I know of it. Like, I really want to watch this show, but I only want to watch it if it's going to continue, which I know it's not. So
it's not. But yeah, she plays the best friend of the girl that Joan Cusack is.
Yeah.
Main, whatever. Another Lily Taylor joint here as well. Where should we stop next, Gavin? She's in Where the Heart Is for a Tip Spot, The Very Muppet Christmas Movie, which we covered in our Christmas musicals.
No, we didn't.
We didn't?
Yeah. So this, I just want to very quick stop here. It's a very Merry Muppet Christmas Movie is the first television film that they made because the other Christmas movies are specials, not television movies. So this was the very first ever like Muppet television movie. It was also made for NBC a year before they were sold to Disney. So it is one of the few Muppet properties Disney does not own, does not have the rights to. And yeah, I watched it for this and it's fun. It's cute. It's a little too much of its time, which I know is funny because like the Muppet movie is very 70s, but this like there's all an extended Scrubs gag and there's a bit with the crocodile hunter and it's like, I don't need this.
Okay. Yeah.
But she's very good. She's the villain in it. She's like a heartless banker. And I love that she like doesn't learn a lesson.
You can pay me the considerable debt you owe me in full by midnight of the 24th or vacate this theater.
But the 24th is Christmas Eve.
Yes, it also happens to be the due date for payment on the theater. It's funny how one day can mean so many different things.
But we had a deal with Mr. Bitterman. You see, he said we could extend the contract and pay him after the whole week of shows.
That's right. Yeah, too bad you don't have anything in writing. Contracts, what are you gonna do?
I thought it was cute with a capital Q.
She's cute. In 2003, a year after that, she's in School of Rock, which is one of her more iconic roles. She's the uptight principal who kind of, through the movie, becomes a little bit more unwound and it loosens up a little bit.
She's sort of on to Jack Black from the beginning, but then also like very charmed by him too. And...
Yes. Jack Black, who's also in Cradle of Rock.
Yeah, and High Fidelity.
Yes, and High Fidelity, that's right. But School of Rock we talked about in our
Richard Linklater episode.
But
I will say, I love her performance in School of Rock, and I think it is a perfect blend of what she can do, because I guess we haven't really talked about the three roles that Hollywood typecasts her in is the best friend, the like wacky, like really wacky out there person, or the uptight, like like everything has to be by the rules. And I loved watching her in this because sometimes when she does uptight, it's a bit of a waste. I'll be perfectly honest, because it's like she can do so many things and you're not letting her be. But in this, like watching her unwind, watching, that Edge of 17 scene where Jack Black's like, I'd like to go on a field trip. And she's like singing along to Edge of 17.
You know what? Oh man, I would love to take the kids to a concert.
Concert?
Yeah. There's one at the end of the month that would be perfect. The Philharmonic, they do the classics. They do Beethoven, Mozart, Enya, that kind of stuff.
Huh.
Oh, but you guys have a policy about field trips, huh?
Would it be educational?
Would it be educational? It could be very educational.
Maybe we can make an exception.
It's so good and so well played. And like, maybe... on a scale of 1 to 10 of all the things she could do, maybe like only a 6, but she's so powerful at only a 6.
But even like the scene where like that rocker who's wearing like the low jeans.
Isn't that guy in the government now, by the way? Isn't he? Did somebody find out a couple of years ago that he's like a politician?
That's crazy. I hope he's a good one.
Yeah.
Great. Love that. The power of Joan and Jack Black. Like we mentioned, she does a tip spot in Looney Tunes Back in Action. I did watch Raising Helen, which is fine.
That's literally the thing that I was referring to about being uptight and wasting that. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. Very that. Let's go. She lends her voice to Chicken Little in 2005. I did watch Friends with Money in 2006. This little indie joint with Jennifer Aniston and Frances McDormand. It was also fine. Nothing to write home about.
Oh, he's
bad.
Oh yeah, damn it. He's a district attorney, but he's a Republican. Boo.
I could see you searching.
I just had to fall down that rabbit hole of finding that information out.
So I'm breezing through, but I do want to mention 2008's War Incorporated.
Yes. Yeah. I think people just call it War Inc. I think they're okay calling it that.
I think they're incorporated, actually. This is Joan Cusack joint again. He co-wrote and produced the film. This was a weird watch. This I'd not seen or heard of. And as I was watching it, I was like, oh, this is one of those anti-war, backlash movies to the war on terror and all that shit, which is A-okay with me. But to me, it had it reminded me a lot of American Dreams, because it's very satirical, is really aiming right for the top. There's a Dick Cheney kind of inversion character. They go to Turkestan, I believe is the fictional place they're going, and it's all about putting this country up on its feet with like Popeyes, and there's a starlet. It is Hilary Duff doing a kind of. Have you not watched this?
No, but it does sound very American Dreams.
Yes, it's American. I mean, I loved American Dreams, which we talked about for our Many More episode. I don't think War Inc. is as successful. It's the whole twist. I mean, spoiler alert: the twist at the end is that John Cusack is the father of Hilary Duff. But
have I seen this movie? Anyways, I don't.
This movie has been called the spiritual cousin to Grosse Pointe Blank. He is a assassin. She plays the assistant again, but it's just very centered on saying fuck you to the American government and the war in Iraq and all those fun things. It did not do well. It was, again, just too close to the time period. People were not ready for it. But also, I think it's fucking nuts. I mean, like, Hilary Duff being a Middle Eastern pop star, but then secretly John Cusack's daughter. It's weird. Yeah,
it's
that very weird. Not... And Hilary Duff is doing an accent. So there's
oof. Oh no.
Yeah. What do you mean you don't want my?
No, don't do it, Louis.
I'm not joking.
Move on.
She does tip spots in Confessions of a Shopaholic, My Sister's Keeper.
She plays the psychiatrist in The Perks of Being a Wallflower.
Yes.
I think she's very good. And it's not a big role, but it is, she's there. The previous mentioned The End of the Tour. It's not a big role, but it is it's a comedic role in a slightly more dramatic movie.
Mm-hmm.
And this is maybe the new phase where I guess she sort of aged out of best friend. So what they're doing is they're making her the mom.
It's mom. It's also like mom's best friend. It's like older woman who has like a weird thing going on. Yeah, it definitely is a new era for her. I mean, like this kind of era, I feel like we can kind of just zip through. Yeah. I watched Mars Needs Moms. It's a CGI thing she did, motion capture for that. Of course, there's just Toy Story 3. In 2014, she has a bit part in Welcome to Me, the Kristen Wiig. I don't even know what to call that movie. It is an alleged movie.
I saw it in the theater, so I saw it at Nighthawk Cinema. I remember the drink being very good.
But at least we have that. So
pop star never stops stopping. She's very funny in that movie. I mean, the scene where she's like giving kids Coke and she's like, kids first, mom second.
She had her own dreams of becoming a star back in the day, and she gave it up to have me, so I really owe her for that. And I'm lucky to have her support.
Okay, you go first. Kids first, and then moms.
The main thing I think for this era of her career, though, people know her from, is actually her work on TV. From 2011 to 2015, she was in Shameless, playing Sheila Jackson. She was the only person from the show that ever won an Emmy for their work on the show.
And she was nominated all 5 years that she was on, too, nonetheless.
Yeah, and she's amazing. I didn't watch all of Shameless, but I definitely watched while she was on. And she's so good. She plays an agoraphobic, kind of sexual kinkster.
I watched the pilot, and I remember her being very good, but I didn't like the British Shameless, and the pilot is very similar. And I hear that's where they like diverge after that. But I was just like, meh.
She's in a series of unfortunate events, the Netflix joint, if you will.
Re-teaming with Barry Sonnenfeld, who directed the Addams Family Values.
And going way back, she did have a show on ABC, What About Joan, that I remember watching. I remember being like, I love her, and I'm going to watch this show. I don't remember what it was. It was just a show about Joan, and
she was like a college professor, I think. But I remember watching it too. But I listened to an interview where she was like, right around the time that she'd gotten it too, so like she didn't know it was getting canceled, but she was like, I'm basically doing it because they're willing to shoot it in Chicago, because it allows me to be a mom and like be at home, and I'm like, I love that. And she had just found out that she was pregnant with her second child around that time.
What are you still doing here? Oh, I had an advisory with one of my girl students, and God, such problems you never heard. And I think decency demands that you can't end the session until one of you stops crying.
By the way, Joan, nothing happened here between us here.
Betsy, when are you going to do something?
I don't want to talk about him.
Okay.
yeah, I mean, like, I think, that kind of covers all of her, film roles. Like, really quickly, her personal life. She married an attorney, Richard Burke, in 1996. They have 2 sons, Dylan and Miles. She discovered she was pregnant on the first day of shooting Mr. Wrong, which is very funny because Mr. Wrong sucks.
Yeah.
They still live in Chicago.
She says, her mother was very political. She's not super political, but she is more interested in psychology. But that even being said, her and her brother did sign like a anti-war, not in my name resolution, opposing the invasion of Iraq, all the way back in 2003.
Yeah.
And you did mention she does own a store since 2011. She owns the Judy Maxwell Home, which is a gift shop in Old Town Chicago. And that is named after Barbra Streisand's character in What's Up, Doc, which is Cusack's favorite movie, which is also in one of the few films in the Mixed Reviews Hall of Fame.
Yes, it is. Snaps for that. Okay, icon queen. She's got taste. Yeah, there's a really fun New Yorker piece where like a writer goes to see the gift shop, and it's just like Joan is like fiddling with tchotchkes. No one recognizes her. They're just like,
yeah. And she has said in things. I also watched her at like Comic-Con appearances and whatnot, and she's like, yeah, I'm there. Like, come visit.
Yeah, and like her and her like it. They didn't say he's a gay assistant, but like it seems like he's a gay assistant who works at the shop.
You know what? It's 2022. Don't make assumptions, Louis. Don't.
No, she has a gay best friend.
Don't out that assistant.
Oh my God. Do you think he's gonna come look for me?
He is. He's gonna look you up.
I'm listed, honey. I'm in the pages.
See you in the magazines.
Yes. But that's really, all of the filmography and stuff we have on Miss Joan. Gavin, should we get into our picks?
We absolutely should. Let's start with the negative first, because she's had such a wide, varying career. I think we should start with the stuff that we didn't love so much. Well, this was, in the end, ended up being very easy for me. I will say, I did start out by being like, Raising Helen, because I was like, ugh, what a fucking waste. What an absolute waste. But then I saw Mr. Wrong. And yeah, Mr. Wrong is such a slog. As we previously mentioned, it's an Ellen DeGeneres rom-com vehicle in which she's a woman who's unlucky in love until she meets this man who is seemingly perfect, played by Bill Pullman. But turns out, no, he's absolutely insane. And he has this ex-girlfriend who has a new lover, which is the only joke that I thought was funny, was the fact that his ex-girlfriend's new lover is helping her out. But Joan Cusack plays this previous lover who is willing to kill any woman that Bill Pullman falls in love with. And she starts out by threatening Ellen DeGeneres. She corners her in her home. She puts gum in her hair. Then the second scene escalates to her trying to stab her to death in the middle of the desert. But that being said, this performance is, I don't know. She just isn't being directed. And listen, I had to Google who directed this movie, and I saw Nick Castle, and then I was like, no way. Can't be that Nick Castle. Can't be the Nick Castle we talked about in our John Carpenter episode that played Michael Myers in the original Halloween. Turns out, in fact, it is Nick Castle. It is Michael Myers himself, Nick Castle, who has directed maybe more movies than John Carpenter.
You're saying that Michael Myers directed Ellen DeGeneres and Mr. Wrong?
Yeah, Michael Myers, the serial killer, not the comedian.
Right.
Yes.
Correct.
Yeah, this movie is just not funny. Like it's like 90% like falling flat on its face when it comes to jokes. Ellen's really annoying in it. She's very unlikable. And listen, you don't have to be likable to be a protagonist, but you have to make me care about you. And I did not care one iota what happened to her at any point in time. Bill Pullman is trying, I guess.
Yes.
But once again, he's a cartoon character.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what reality he's going for. And then you have Joan, who is like harpying about, just like screaming and like speech impediment, like dumb hick, but also like homicidal maniac. It's rough. The whole thing is rough. We're lucky that movie's only an hour and a half because it's a patience test.
Okay, fine, I can go now? I don't think so. Cut the couch, Bob. Don't cut the couch. Hey, is for horses, fish tank. Wants to break up your shower too, huh, do ya? No. Then shut up and sit down. What did you do together, huh? Did you make it?
Look, you can have Whitman, okay? I don't want him. He's all yours, I swear.
Oh, like suddenly you're gonna blow him off. Drop the palaver, princess. All women want wit, I know that.
You want some gum in your hair? No, I don't.
You could almost see like the points of the movie where they're like, okay, we need to try and add something here to make it like the ending of the movie. They just fully decide to like blow it up, and they're like have Ellen and the guy like breaking the fourth wall and being like, oh, well, the sun is setting in the right direction, but like LOL movies, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Wrong is so bad. And Joan, you know, it's almost like they hired her to do the one thing, but then like had no idea what to do with her really, because the tone of that movie is all over the place.
And I almost wonder, and like this is not me blaming her, but I almost wonder if she brought more to it because it feels incredibly underwritten. Right. It doesn't feel like the gags are there. So I feel like she was like, I'm gonna do what I do best. I'm gonna put a character on it. And that character is just that like nobody told her no.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Good pick, Kevin. My pick, I was toggling between two, but I think I've settled. My 1-star review has to go to Runaway Bride.
Yeah.
It's infuriating in a lot of ways, but specifically to Joan, you know, I read about her taking this role, and she said that she wouldn't take this best friend role unless they gave her something to do, unless they gave her like, you know, have to actually have meaning or whatever. And she's talked about how she gets to tell Julia Roberts, you know, she's behaving badly and needs to like, you know, own up for her decisions or whatever. And I'm like, sis, I don't see it. It's not whatever you're seeing. I'm not seeing. It's just Joan doing the least. I think like of all the movies, even the movies where I'm thinking like she's not doing, or the movies that suck, at least she's having fun. This movie looks like zero fun.
Yeah.
This movie, the reason why I don't like this movie wholesale is because they had to sell this movie on the same lie that the quote unquote Runaway Bride is trying to tell. Like it's fucked up and wrong, you know, like the fucking photoshoppery on this poster of Julia Roberts' face on the bride with the sneakers, Catch Me If You Can. The gag was like, oh, it's this bride that keeps running away. But like in the movie itself, they're saying, you know, oh, it was only 3 weddings. It wasn't 7. And she's like obviously this like kind of fucked up character.
Yeah.
And it's
funny, and not to cut you off, but one of the famous things. I mean, this movie was also made to capitalize on the chemistry between Gere and Roberts, and one of the things that people have a tendency to forget about Pretty Woman is that it was written as a drama, and then they made it a comedy, and this movie doesn't have those bones, so it has these dramatic turns that are very dark. But because so much of it is trying to go for the laugh, like I'm also thinking of that scene that you brought up where Joan Cusack tells her like she needs to grow up, essentially. Do you remember the impetus of that scene?
Yeah, it's because Julia Roberts is like, do you think I flirt with your husband?
Do you think I flirt with Corey?
Yes.
I don't mean to.
I know. I think sometimes you just sort of spaz out with excess flirtatious energy and it just lands on anything male that moves.
Anything male that moves, as opposed to anything male that doesn't?
Well, like certain kinds of coral.
Definitely gonna have to kill myself.
Why?
Because you think I'm all like, hey man, check me out.
No, I don't. I think you're like, I'm charming and mysterious in a way that even I don't understand, and something about me is crying out for protection from a big man like you.
But then at the end of it, she's like, LOL, friends.
Yeah. It's kind of like, but girlie, don't worry about it. Yes, you're a hot, sexy bitch and like whatever, but like you're my good Judy. And the whole this movie is just like dripping in like fake. It's just so inauthentic, like Julia Roberts who like runs the garage shop and like it's just like so painfully obvious where this movie is going.
I tweeted about this, but there's this whole subplot about how she's not a complete person because whenever she enters a relationship, and listen, I've known people like this. I've known men like this. I've known women like this who, when they enter a relationship, everything that their partner likes, they instantly like.
Right.
And so the thing is that she only orders eggs exactly like her partner does. And so when she's single at the end, there's a scene where she like is trying a table full of different types of eggs.
Stupid.
It's a stupid sight gag. And then in the end, she like goes to Richard Gere and she's like, I like Eggs Benedict. I don't like any of those other preparations. And it's like, A, Eggs Benedict is not a preparation. It's an actual meal. That's called poached. And B, you are an adult human being. You had had those eggs before. Like you knew you didn't like them. It's very much to me along the same lines of the In-N-Out thing where it's like he had no inkling he was gay before. Like it took a Gloria Gaynor song to like.
There's so many things. This guy writing a column for USA Today, like what LOL, writing an entire story based off of one interview from a guy in a bar and just like putting this woman on blast. Like it's beyond the pale, and it's. And more specifically, most importantly, I think Joan is wasted. This is not a good best friend role for her. She's snoozing through it. She's kind of like, okay, well, this is my mainstream big budget movie that I have to like be in. But like every fun thing that she does, like in Working Girl, and all those other movies where she's the best friend and steals the spotlight, it's all gone from here. She has more presence and radiance in fucking 16 Candles than in this movie.
Yeah.
So there's
good.
that. So there's that.
Was there anything else that you saw that you didn't particularly like?
I really don't like Welcome to Me.
Yeah.
I was talking to Derek earlier and I was like, I just find it very problematic that Kristen Wiig is doing a bit about a woman who's bipolar. And the bit is like, I'm kooky and weird and selfish, but also it's just because I'm not taking my meds. And bipolar disorder, has not affected anyone in like my family or myself, but like I do know people with bipolar disorder, and like there are people with bipolar disorder who are kooky and weird, but to make a bit out of it and to expect laughs because this woman is off her meds and now has access to money is deeply irresponsible and also just not fucking funny. How about that? I maybe would have been like, this is problematic, but it made me laugh, but it is just so unfucking funny. And again, has to deal with like a media company or whatever, just
Right.
like being like, LOL, whatever, we need money. And it's like, there are ways to do, like, Joan is like a producer on the show, and, you know, again, she's just there for the ride. She really isn't doing anything.
I had forgotten she was in the movie. So to give you that, I will say that's a film that, like, had it been made even 3 years later, would have been handled so differently. But I will say one positive is, and like, I don't want to like give it credit where it doesn't deserve it. It did make someone I know realize that one of their relatives had bipolar and like had them go get help for it. So that's I was like, oh, well, okay.
There you
something
go.
good. But yes, I agree. It's not tactfully handled. And yeah, I'm going to throw out there, I really didn't like Raising Helen. I think I spoke my piece about that, though. 2009, she does this TV movie with Mae Whitman called Acceptance that looks like it was edited on iMovie, and I have no idea why she did it, if she was blackmailed into it, or it's just a really bad movie full of cliches. There's a scene where she yells at her husband about how he doesn't know her. She's like, it's another uptight role, and she yells at her husband that he doesn't know her daughter and that she cuts herself. And I was like, what is happening? It's not great. My Sister's Keeper, which we mentioned in our Cameron Diaz episode, was my 1-star review. I don't think Joan's giving a terrible performance, but I think that role is so manipulative that it drove me crazy, and I brought it up in that episode.
I think Men Don't Leave is a fucking weird movie. And again, just like, sometimes people in Hollywood are like, what if stories don't make sense? Let's do that. And
I've seen that a lot.
Yeah. And I would say from her like animated world, like Mars Needs Moms is like kind of like an obvious cash grab, like wanting to be something. It's like very unoriginal, very beautiful gowns. But yeah, okay. I think we're good on the 1 stars.
Absolutely. Why don't we move into our 5-star reviews? Should we just count and say it at the same time?
Yes. Okay.
1, 2, 3. Adam's Family Values. I mean, how could it not be? How could it not be? Does a day go by in which I don't say Malibu Barbie?
They had to go.
I am a ballerina.
Yeah.
I don't, there's something so amazing, so funny. And what's even weirder about this, maybe I should backtrack a bit. I always say, I think the first Addams Family is a better movie, and I think this is a funnier movie, and that's no insult to either film. I just think that structurally this film is maybe a little overstuffed because they separate the characters, and it does do a good job at bringing them back together. But like, there is a time period where like they separate Wednesday and Pugsley, and that where it doesn't function fully as like, I don't know, like it's complicated, but it doesn't structurally make sense as a film necessarily to me. That being said, it's so fucking funny. Debbie Jelinski, as you mentioned before, she's a con woman who kills her husbands. She marries into this rich family, Uncle Fester, and she's there to kill him and get his money. And I even have a t-shirt that is Debbie's face, and it says, "I want you dead and I want your money." But I think what's great is in the first movie, you have 3 con people trying to get their fortune, but for the most part, they're normal people.
Right.
And what's wild about Debbie is she's not normal.
No.
She is vicious and cruel and a monster, but she's just not their type of monster. And it's so funny because one of the things that I love about the Addams Family is you realize like how odd they are, like how genuinely normal they are too, because they love their family and they just want to exist the way that they exist. And then you put them up against somebody like Debbie Jelinski and you're just like, no one's fucking normal. Oh my God. Everything's insane.
I think the moment, I mean, her entrance into the movie is so iconic. She's got that white, like everyone is in black, and she comes in with this little scoochy white dress, the iconic bob. She has never looked hotter.
She's so hot in this movie.
Period.
Not to like jump ahead in your story, but when they go to visit her house after she's married Uncle Fester, and she's in that robe with the ostrich feathers just like flowing off her body.
It's drag.
It's drag. But you were saying, sorry, in her first scene.
Well, you know, from that moment to when she's very quickly engaged to Fester, and they're shocked, like, that ring, it was my mother's. She was buried with it. And then she just kind of really fucking just like rips out the shovel. And she has this like really crazy grin. And it's just like, oh, she's that bitch. She is not disturbed or perturbed by the Addams and their weirdness or kookiness at all, because she is on their level and then like through the roof to another level. But somehow, again, she is able to be so like grounded to the earth. You know, she is on this crazy level. But then when she's like, here's my slideshow about why I'm crazy.
Yeah.
And it's all about the Barbies and her parents, and like, you know, don't I deserve love?
Yeah.
And jewels and to shop.
Husband number 2, the senator. He loved his state. He loved his country.
What about Debbie?
Sorry, Debbie, no Mercedes this year. We have to set an example. Oh, yeah? Set this! So I killed. So I maimed. So I destroyed one innocent life after another. Aren't I a human being? Don't I yearn and ache and shop? Don't I deserve love and jewelry?
I have seen an interview with her where she says she can't remember, so it may in fact be Apocrypha, but the interviewer asked her, was it true that the other actors had to put cups in their mouths to keep themselves from laughing during her monologue? And she's like, oh, I don't remember, but that sounds really nice.
Yeah, because she is just doing the most.
Right. But there's levels and there's layers to it. It's not the most like Mr. Wrong, where you watch her and you're just like, what are these choices she's making? Is there a character here? Or is this just a two-dimensional? Like, Debbie has thought put in her. Debbie like clearly has a backstory. Like
she's smart, she's cunning. I mean, the difference between Mr. Wrong and this is like there is a vision for Addams Family Values. There is a style. They are going for a very specific bit. And everyone is on the same like level. My God, the way her and Angelica Houston interact with each other, where it's like, I respect you, but Debbie, pastels. It's so good. Like, those are fucking titans on screen. Like, I mean, going at it.
The script is so tight. You know, Joan Cusack has said one of the best things about working with Barry Sonnenfeld is he is such a visual director. So it like really lets you get in and see, you know, your surroundings, like what you have to play with, the playground per se that you have to work in. And we've mentioned she has this backstory, this history of improv. So she comes into this world, this like 3-dimensional world, and like, this is not me going off on a rant about CG, but that's one of the things I love about the two Addams Family movies is there's such a physicality to them. There's such a reality to them. And how could you not like take advantage of just like play it? And it's so even the things that you can tell that Debbie's like, what the fuck? One of my favorite jokes to this day, I still don't know what it means. She turns to Morticia. She goes, these Addams men, where do you find them? And Morticia goes, it has to be damp.
It has to be damp.
What the fuck does that mean? I love it.
One of my favorites is when Debbie leaves the gift and it's it's a bomb, but like, yeah. And he's like, oh, what is it? It's a bomb. And she's like, what? No. Her reaction is so good. I mean,
give me a kiss. Give me a 20.
Yeah. There's not a lot of movies that make people giggle and chuckle. Like, you know, this movie isn't a laugh out loud, like guffaw movie. It's just kind of like, God, that's so stupid, but so good. Like,
I don't know. I laugh out loud. I may be an easy mark, but like...
well, I mean, I'm laughing out, but like, it's just like that good chuckle. You don't get good chucklers anymore. And this, I mean, and my God, this is just talking about Joan and her performance. We're not even talking about Christina Ricci and all the good things she's doing. Christine Baranski, the amount of tip spots in this movie. Nathan Lane as the cop.
Yes.
Like it's just littered with gems and jewels. No one's doing it better. No one's doing it better than Joan in Addams Family Values.
Absolutely. I don't even know what more to say. I mean, she's shutting it down. It's one of the best performances in any movie.
Yes. Other things that I liked, I mean, she's very good in and Out.
Yes.
No matter if you think the movie is problematic or not, she is such a star in it. She has such good scenes in it. Working Girl, she takes the little bits of breadcrumbs that they give her, and she is so good. Broadcast News, same thing. Like her playing with Holly Hunter and the boys. It's just she nails it. You know. What else, Gavin?
And then the aforementioned like School of Rock, like really can't say enough good things about her performance in that movie. It's a true supporting role, but she takes every second of it. And seriously, and I know it's like you're gonna watch it someday and be like, what the fuck? But watch Toys and tell me that she is not like giving. Okay. She's giving.
I wasn't expecting that, but alrighty.
Yeah. Toys is one of those that like nobody's ever going to agree with me on. I get it. It's like, it's a mess. It's dark. But I love it. I can't help it. R.I.P. Robin Williams.
I also will go to bat for Say Anything. I think, you know, she's not a lot in it, but like it really does feel like if you are sick and tired of watching those fucking Netflix rom-coms that are bad, just go back to Say Anything, and it's like, this is what they're supposed to be like.
Robin Williams story, real quick.
Okay.
On the set of Toys, he turned to her one day and goes, someday you're going to be married, and I want you to invite me. I won't come, but I'll get you a great gift.
That I got engaged and was getting married, and I'd seen him in another, we'd done something else together, 9 months. And so I invited him to the wedding. He didn't come. He bought all the china for the whole thing. For our, like a whole 12 table set. Wow. I mean, cool. Cool that he remembered, that he said that. Cool that he did. You know, he didn't have to. Just that's the kind of guy he was.
R.I.P.
And I agree with him. I'm not coming to your wedding. R.I.P.
All right, Gavin. Let's do our mixed reviews review.
My 1-star review was 1996's Mr. Wrong.
My 1-star review is 1999's Runaway Bride.
And both of our 5-star review was 1993's Addams Family Values.
When you got it, flaunt it. All right, let's get into our fast forward.
Funny enough, you know, she's I don't know what she's like. I'm nervous because literally the last like 3 things that she did that are not Toy Story are Netflix things.
Yes.
You know, there was Let It Snow, there was Unicorn Store, there's Klaus, which is
I saw Let It Snow.
Okay. I heard she's a tinfoil woman.
Yes. And I saw it because I've read the book. It's based on a book. And so I saw it a while ago. I don't remember it that well, but like it was very tip spot, very like the teens are like, oh,
we know who you are. Are you Debbie from Addams Family?
Yeah. She was doing a little bit of Homecoming, the series on Amazon.
I do wonder, and this is me projecting, this is not any factual information, but Julia Roberts did the first season of Homecoming.
Yes.
I wonder if she did it as like a friendly favor for the second season. but maybe not. Maybe it has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I don't know. I think she's just so uninterested in like playing any type of games. I would also, say that Joan Cusack hasn't been making a lot of movies, and so she's probably just like chilling. It's weird. Every interview I've seen with her, she's so demure, so ungoofy, so unlike a lot of the characters she plays. Which is, I know obviously it's acting, but like in my head, it's like, oh, Joan must be like just like a riot. But she's like, this is a business, and I don't care that much about it.
Right. And she like I'm not kidding when she says she wants to be home with her kids. She wants to be home with her kids, and now, admittedly, her eldest is. Her youngest is 22. So like they're not children anymore, but like I think that was a big part of it is she's for lack of a better term a normal person. She just happens to be incredibly talented and good at playing these characters in these movies.
Right. I mean, like I mentioned, she was almost in Julia, but was like, no, you guys are not filming in Chicago, and I'm fine.
I watched the first episode of that, by the way, and I really hated it. So
you hated it?
Yeah. And I was like, I'm the audience for this, so like,
and she, I think that's the thing also, though. She's also just like, you guys can come to me with your little projects, and I'm hanging around, I'm not going to like be hustling, and not that she needs it, that Toy Story money is never going to stop flowing in.
No. And they're just going to keep pulling her in for specials. And, like it's very easy for them to be like, go away, Tim Allen, and replace him with Chris Evans. But Joan Cusack is like a 1 in a billion talent. Like,
yeah, I agree. And, I think she's so funny. I think she's so good when she's dramatic. She truly is just like that level of talent that can do anything. And it's so interesting because she is one of the few people that I think we've covered that is just like not in the rat race, like in it, like always kind of hustling for that next project. There is no one like Joan Cusack. There is no one that can do what she does on her level. And, I think she recognizes her talent and how much she's worth. And she's like, and again, she's always talking about how hard it is to make movies. She's like, I don't care. I'm not going to like deal with it. I'm not going to like,
It's so funny too, because normally I think at this time we say like, hey, this is what I think this person should be doing, or this is what I'd like to see them do. And honestly, no, she knows what she's doing. She, but my one thing is like, maybe like, less Netflix stuff. But you know what? Hey, if they make it easy for her, if they shoot in Chicago,
I think
fuck my drag. Yeah,
let it snow. I'm sure they filmed somewhere in the Midwest where it's snowy and shit, and she just like popped on over. What I want is like the Joan Cusack School of Acting in Chicago. I want her to be like this kooky headmistress, just like teaching all these youths about like kind of weird theater and like acting, and like I see that for her. I see just like, or maybe I just want that movie to be made where she is the headmistress of a kooky school for theater and art.
I did have one fleeting thought, which is because she's so good at playing the two sides of the coin, I would love to see her play twins in a movie. And I'm sure that like has passed at this point. I'm sure she's like, I'm almost 60. I'm not going to be able to play twins in a movie, but I'd love to see her play like the super uptight and then the like kooky wacky,
Right. Yeah, that is a genius idea. I'm
shocked it hasn't been done.
I know. There's a part of me that's like, God, it's kind of a shame she never had more vehicles for herself.
Yeah.
In movies, but she seems so content and happy with her commitments to Hollywood and the output she has had. And it's funny, during one of those cons, they had one of those like reels of like highlights or whatever, and they played Joan's reel, and it was like banger after banger, iconic roles that people were like hooting and hollering for. And then they played Joan Cusack, who has been the lead in more movies, and I was like, I don't know who that is. I don't know who that is.
You're like, because, oh yeah, Edgar Allan Poe. Okay, yeah, the one time he played Edgar Allan Poe.
It's just like he plays such like straight everyman that it's like there's no iconography with them. But with hers, you can literally show, one snippet of her in that back brace, and it's just like, yes, queen, yes. Like there's so much visual iconography with her that's just so good, and so she is our Tucci queen,
Absolutely.
Able to take a little and give a lot, and that's a really hard thing to do.
I am so glad you suggested her. I'm surprised I'm sure she's on like our list somewhere. We have a list from when we started the show, but I'm so surprised that we hadn't thought of her before. But she fits so perfectly into this like truncated spot, and I'm so happy we did it. Like nothing brought me more joy than watching some of these, even some of the lesser stuff, I'll say. I was rarely upset, but I think that brings Joan Cusack to its natural conclusion. Thank you so much, Joan. You are amazing. But if you want to contact us, and not Joan, sadly, just us, though I guess you can stop by Joan's store and leave a note for us, but we're probably not going to get it. But if you want to contact us on Twitter, you can always find us at The Mixed Reviews.
We're on Facebook. Just type in The Mixed Reviews.
If you want to email us, you can write us a little letter at reviewsmixed@gmail.com.
We're on Instagram or at _mixed_reviews.
And if you want to listen to our back catalog as you've listened to this entire episode, feel free to listen to us on any major podcast platform. We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Audible. And if you could, because I'm really trying to get us to that 100 reviews, leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Write us a little thing. We'll read it on the show. If you don't want us to read it on the show, just leave us a 5-star review. But it really helps us get the show out and makes it more available to the people who may be not listening to us. That, helps us
find our people,
build that audience. Come to mama.
Oh my God, Lady Gaga. It's all full circle, Gavin.
It absolutely is.
And that's a Joanne deep cut for everyone out there who's like, what? Thank you guys for listening so much. Gavin, you've been doing a little bit of traveling. I'm going to do some traveling next too.
You are.
But we have, our next episodes booked and blessed. We know what's coming up. We're so excited to give that back out to all you guys. So until then, we'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Looking forward.